Hey everyone, I just wanted to take a few minutes to explain what you need to do to complete the week 4 discussion. Go ahead and take a look at that. The title for this week's discussion is Life Then versus Life Now. And the discussion prompt states, think about how much life has changed since you were a child. Discuss at least 3 similarities or at least 3 differences between life then and life now. You may choose to discuss similarities or differences from your personal life, or you may choose to discuss similarities or differences about life in general, meaning examples that the rest of us have probably observed or experienced as well. So what that means is you can think about specifically how your life has changed since you were a child, or how things are the same. Maybe you think it's interesting that even though you're an adult now, there are some things that didn't change. Some things never change. Or, obviously there are some distinct differences between life as a child and life as an adult, of course. But you could also look at it in a more general way, like almost like the way the world has changed since you were a child versus what life is like now for all of us. So you could look at it, your personal life. You can discuss 3 similarities between your childhood and your adulthood, or 3 differences between your childhood and your adulthood. Or you could go from a more general perspective and more like the world at large. How has life in general changed for all of us from when we were kids to now that we're adults? Or what are some things that are still similar about the world we grew up in as children versus the world that we live in now? You can go either direction, but choose one and stay in that lane. So if you want to talk about, your personal life, stick there with all of your examples. If you want to go with sort of a more general worldly approach, stay in that lane. The other thing to keep in mind is it does say similarities or differences. Don't talk about both. Decide, what do I actually want to focus on? Do I want to focus on 3 similarities or 3 differences? Stick with one or the other, okay? And regardless of which direction you choose to go, whether specific personal examples or more worldly common examples, you want to make sure that you are specific. For instance, don't just say, life as a kid was more fun, but life now is much harder. Instead, provide specific examples of fun that you had as a kid and specific examples of how, as an adult, it's much harder, right? And you can be serious or humorous. This can be kind of a funny subject to talk about because, especially if you're going with differences, I think they lend themselves to a little bit of humor when we're thinking about what life was like when we were growing up versus now. Even the similarities could be a little funny. So it doesn't have to be like a super serious response, but it does need to be thorough. It does need to pick a lane and stay in that lane. And it needs to use specific examples. Shoot for a paragraph that's at least 10 to 12 sentences. I mean, if you're talking about 3 differences between life as a kid and life now, you've got one difference. The first difference, you got to talk about what that difference was like as a kid and what that difference is like as an adult. And then you got difference number 2. You have to talk about what it was like as a kid versus what it's like as an adult. So you've got 3 main ideas here, but you have to talk about 2 sides, right, on each of those main ideas. So keep that in mind when you're gauging if you have a thorough enough response. This could be a potential topic for writing assignment 2, compare contrast paragraph that you'll do in week 6. And it is a very common topic that ends up getting used for that assignment. So again, the more you put into this discussion prompt and the more you really follow the specific instructions that I'm giving, because this is pretty much what the parameters will be for that compare contrast paragraph, meaning, you know, you can't talk about similarities and differences. You have to choose one or the other for the two topics you're going to discuss. And then you've got to have 3 specific main ideas, and you have to discuss both sides for each main idea, right? So, you know, the more you put into this, the more ideas you will already have at your disposal if you decide to choose this topic for writing assignment 2. Okay. Try to have your first post up by Thursday night so that everyone has plenty of time and options to choose from so that they can respond to 2 classmates by Sunday night. Remember, the week 4 discussion will remain open during week 5, but if you're posting during week 5, it's only for 50% credit. So definitely try to make sure that you get this completed fully on time so that you don't lose out on those easy points, right? If you have any questions, run into any technical difficulties, reach out right away. Otherwise, have a little fun with it, and I can't wait to read your responses.